Mr. and Mrs. Adjudicators, my ancients is the victim of the Netherlands slavery. My ancients are the people who has actually providing a lot of infrastructures, a lot of buildings, a lot of efforts in order to generate the improvements and also the establishments of our country, of Indonesia. But ladies and gentlemen, my ancients never gave payment from the Netherlands people. They are suffered, they are being slaved, they are being hurt. No matter how actually they have felt, they are forced to do without any payment in their situation. They are forced to do anything without any considerations. Even after my ancients have passed away, during our era, because my ancients that never left anything, because of the poverty that we felt, because of the things that we suffer in this past situations that coming until our situation, we cannot do anything because the development of the country is very improving. People who are rich, who are enriched from the previous era, after their inheritance for their family who are still rich, are even oppressing our situations to be even more deserted, to be even more unjustifiable in our condition, to be even compared to them. This is the reason why this motion should be upheld, because we believe that the government as the neutral action, as the person who understands the situation of the country, so actually starting to give the compensation, so start to actually pay the reparation for the descendants of the slaves victim. Because we believe, because we believe that these kinds of the payment are what actually necessarily to be and also deserve to be given by the descendants of the slavery victim. What is our mechanisms of this kind of the pay reparation? We are going to create this system as what insurance system actually provided. When you are doing the insurance system, you are paying certain money to actually pay the regular fund of your insurance. And after you pass away, the person who are going to inherit your insurance fund and also the money are the people who are actually the inheritance of them are those people who actually inherit this kind of the thing. This is the same situation when our policy will be upheld in this situation. Because we believe, because we believe that this policy, because these people are persons who have actually created the infrastructures. If they are not exist, there will be no Anyar Jakarta, there will be no railway track systems in Jakarta, Java, and also other cities in there. There will be no such kind of the things existed if there are no slaves who are actually conducting this kind of the thing at their situation. But however, none of the slavery's descendants actually felt the effort which has been given by their elders, by their descendants, by their descendants to actually generate this kind of the thing. We think this is a very problematic issue because they are going to stick in their situation and they are not going to moving on to their situation. We believe that by this kind of the mechanism, sit down first. We believe by this kind of the mechanisms, what we do, we are going to generate some profits to be some tax to be allocated properly to generate the welfare of those society who are being the descendants of the slavery victims. We are going to give them certain amount of money in order to let them run a business, not to actually feed them. Sit down. So if opposition would like to argue to us that this family are going to be a burden from the society, no, we don't think so, because we are generating this some certain allocation for the property to the society to actually generate. Sit down. To actually generate it and giving it to actually running some certain of business in order to pursuing their happiness, to pursuing their welfare. And we are also going to give the living place for them to stay. This is also the same situation like what Ahok done in their governmental for actually generate some certain of tax and also budget for those poverty society. Before 2015, you never seen that kind of the thing. So we believe that this kind of action is actually possible to be upheld. So okay. Now moving on to my before moving on, okay.
Don't you think that it's unfair for you just to favor the people that come from the slave?
We believe, now listen to me. Why we think that it is not unfair? Because these people who are becoming the descendants of the slave are the people who have given contribution to your society, are those people who have given contribution to your country. If they are not existing, you are not even staying, you are not even experiencing a very good infrastructure in your country. This is the reason why we believe that it is a very justifiable action. Because those elders of the society have already done their best in actually generate the infrastructure of the society at the very first place. Now moving on to my substantive. This is going to be a compensation of the government to the family. Why we think so? During the tragedy, they are being suffered. They are not even paid at the very first place. Government in its action has the duty as the agent of the control to actually generate some profits to the society who are actually being slavery of the slavery action in the previous era. Because why? Because the psychological condition which mentally affected their situation in the current era. For example, there are society who are still inherit their hatred, who are still inherit their dissatisfaction of the government policy, because government simply negating their existence at the present and negating their existence of their ancients and the person who has actually provided this kind of the thing. Sit down. And also, by this kind of the thing, they are going to become so with this kind of the problem of the inheritance family who inherit the hate and the dissatisfaction, this action will give the compensation for those society, and then to correct their stigma about the government. So there will no such kind of the argument, the government only negating our ancients without appreciation of our ancients' effort. Because we believe that it should not be limited to only people who are becoming the soldier. Why those soldiers are being given compensation for the government at the very first place? Simply because they are well known. Simply because they are known from their effort to actually generate the independence of the society. But we believe this is unfair for those slavery people as well. They are also contributing to the development of your society, to the development of your infrastructure. How it is possible for our government to actually just left them behind without even any compensation at the current status quo? This is the reason why opening government would like to create these mechanisms to actually create the broken system which has been done at the very first place. Secondly, this is also going to become a check and balance the system for the government and also the society. Why we say so? What I have explained in my first argument has clear enough to generate for you why it is justifiable to do so. And in my second substantive, we are going to say that because there are labor who are used by Netherlands to actually work to provide infrastructure such as building and also the rail track systems, so on and so forth. But the problem is that society keep on paying tax. But to whom this tax is given? This tax is given only to government, and government generated only to the development of the system. They never see to the past era from where this some infrastructure is given to how it is going to actually being provided and also for their treatment. Whereas we believe by this kind of allocation, this is going to be properly given to the people. So that is where we propose.
It is unfair to put the responsibility toward the government of Indonesia, which is at the past. It is the mistake of the Netherlands government if they want to blame that. It is actually the mistake of the government who made these people become poor. But then why this responsibility should be given toward this kind of the rest of Indonesian government, which is at the time, I believe, Indonesia is still at the developing country, which is not independent yet. Even they are still very traditional, even they don't have awareness actually how they can protect their society at that time. Because even the governmental system itself is not being created yet, ladies and gentlemen. It is something that's unfair when we are giving burden toward the government system, which is still immature, and we also don't want this happen because the Russian government, also the person who's not responsible toward the colonialism which has happened in the past. Before I get to my argumentation, going to the first rebuttal, ladies and gentlemen, they say that right now it's important to compensate as the compensation for the government, for the family who already become the victim. For the example about the descendants, the question will be, first, this compensation is not fair enough, ladies and gentlemen, because this only will be given to the descendant who's not the actor who actually having this kind of the victim. He's not the actor who passing this kind of the slavery. Then they give analogy to what the heroes who get compensation. It is different because the heroes is the actor who actually fight to struggle, fighting colonialism. Therefore, he could get the appreciation, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about their descendants which get this kind of the appreciation. So please not there. No, thank you. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, they also believe it will correct the stigmatization of the government which is bad in the front of the society. Well, right now society doesn't have problem about the stigmatization itself. Even when the government simply give this compensation, it will clearly get the stigmatization. Because of what? Because the government will be considered as the unfair political governmental system, which is give or create affirmative action toward the people who actually doesn't have any problem in the current status quo. Now, going to my argumentation, ladies and gentlemen, that right now government already uphold the good governmental system. We uphold meritocracy. We also give appreciation based on what actually people give toward the country, and also there is no discrimination. It's only based on the history. We believe the differentiation or discrimination based on the historical will only lead to the unfairness and also also bad and harmful situation to the country and also violate the essence of the democratic country, ladies and gentlemen. Now I would like to explain to you what the basis argumentation why present government is different with the past government, which is first, I believe the past government also not responsible toward this, but even if they are assuming government should responsible, we believe that the current government is already past several general election and it's different, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, right now government already do some kind of the fair and also appreciation based and also doing some kind of mitigation toward the problem. Even the poverty itself, government also still would not differentiate whether this poverty caused by this kind of the slavery or not. So it's very unfair to blame the government. What the government right now has already done, they are conducting the same equality toward the society, having access to education, having access of job, and also having access to sit in the political party, ladies and gentlemen. Explain to me why government opening government said that Russian status quo is not enough. Even the government already spent a lot of APBN or the budget for the economic, social sector, education sector, which is being enjoyed by the society. Even right now, government already built the infrastructure, the mine to develop the road in Kalimantan, in Sumatra. Right now, you can enjoy the toll from Medan, and in the next 2020, you will enjoy the toll until Lampung, ladies and gentlemen. So basically, there is no something wrong toward the recent government. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, why it is going to create more harm if the government gives this kind of the compensation toward the descendant itself, ladies and gentlemen. We believe right now society will see that we are equal. There is no differentiation inside of this social community. Hey, you are from the past are slavery. No, it's not happen like that anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Right now, government should put this parameter based on the historical thingy to separate the society. We don't want this discrimination and also indirect impact of stigmatization happen because it's harmful. Even it will create affirmative action that will create jealousy toward Western society. For example, yes, I also actually at the past is being victimized. Even if my mother is not becoming a slave, but my mother is murdered, and then it's not being categorized to get compensation. It also will play something like clashing toward the government democratic country, which should be equal in the prison, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we believe also, ladies and gentlemen, it also will create more harm toward the victim or even the descendant itself, because we believe right now the descendant itself has a right to not expose this thing, has right to not being shown by the society that they are the descendant of the slavery. First, maybe they are ashamed, ladies and gentlemen, that actually they are after being victimized, but right now they are in the good condition or good situation. So basically, why the government also has this kind of the responsibility to show to the society, it means government not as unnatural body like they claim, but the government will act as the unfair governmental system or party. So therefore, let me explain after this.
Oh, okay. If you are saying it is about unfair, our policy is very clear that we are only going to generate some allocation. So if these policies are going to be unfair, so the other policy to actually generate some allocation for the poverty is going to be unfair as well.
Yeah.
Also
now let's examine why AHOK create property or why the local government creates special property. Actually, it's already become their special right to determine, but it's not based on the historical thing. It's because there are some conditions, because the job vacancy in Jakarta maybe is not as much as the population. Then the AHOK itself also help this society, ladies and gentlemen. Even the society right now being helped by the scholarship being given by the government. Why? Then we have to back to the past just because to give some kind of the appreciation to the people which is not existing anyway. Now going to the fourth argumentation, we are talking about the actor of the past and the actor of the recent condition. We have two parties here, the government and the past and the recent condition. The society, which is the descendant is already died, ladies and gentlemen, and the descendant itself, which is still alive. We believe there is no correlation. Even in any court, any justice principle, it's impossible for you just because you are as the victim, then I will compensate to your next generation, which maybe is like a long time, year after you leave. So it's something that not giving fair contribution toward the justice idea, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, we believe that the parameter of reparation or parameter of meritocracy should be upheld, and it's already good right now being implemented by the government. Therefore, we believe that this motion should stand, and we don't want to create any more discrimination. And we believe the recent government also not the part should be blamed, because it's also even the past government also should, if not the actor who create this. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that this motion should fall. Thank you.
First of all, we can see how the opening government misunderstood or opening opposition misunderstood or what we brought in this debate today. What we see, they're talking about how it is unfair to put responsible of the government first, and secondly, how they're talking about how they see us to blaming the government itself. We're seeing in here that we are government for what happened to us, for what the victims already give to us, but it's what our responsible in here that we have now. Our nowadays, we enjoy what they have made. What now? We use what they have made. We use the road from Anyar to Jakarta. We use the some of the harbor that they actually these victims make. We use the railing that actually the victims make. That's why we pay after what they give to us. For the descendants, we pay some money to act as the act of the responsible of the government itself. So going to see their my rebuttals. First, they're talking about how it is harming. It's not actually the status quo is equal itself. If they're talking about the equal, then they mean that there is no poverty itself. But we can see so much poverty around this world, around Indonesia especially. So when we're going to see the poverty, we see the cause. What is the cause actually happen because of the poverty itself? We see one of them is because I'm not finished yet. Because of some of their parents, their grandpa and grandma is become slave, so they don't have any thinking of how they should work actually. We can see most people that working as the labor is from Java. Why most of them is from Java? We can see there is so many slavery in Java in the past era. And that's what makes the mindset of these people is wrong. They're thinking about being a labor is something that they have to do because their elder is doing those kind of things. That's why we want to change in here by paying in here. That's why we want to pay to make them business. That's why we want to pay to open their mind that they actually can do something more for themselves. So we've seen in here about how they're talking about how no correlation past government and now government. Ladies and gentlemen, we living in the world. They continue what they actually the past government do in the past. So what we are saying in here that they have saying no correlation, they mean that after election there is no correlation between SBY and Jokowi in here. Nonsense, right? Because what Jokowi do is continue what they actually SBY do for this country. Going to my argument. First, we will have to see on how this is the responsibility of the government. Why this? Before going to my argument.
The problem is that you never delivered how the taxpayer is satisfied because society is not coming from all past history, coming as a victim of this violence of slavery.
Okay, yes, they don't coming from from the slave itself, but we all enjoy what they have made, right? So this is why we think that how this become the responsibility of the government. First, we can see how the slave is actually giving something for the government. When they are already gone, passed away, what they leave for us, they are descendants, right? What they leave for the descendants, they live for the descendants is only the way of thinking on how they are working on labor without giving anything more specific things for the labor to the descendants to think. So we can see their work exists in here. That's why we want to give something more for their descendants in here. That's why we want to make it possible for their descendants to be someone that better in here by giving such kind of money to them to grow up their knowledge, grow up what they actually have in
Yara.
here. So what we see is in here that's reparation. But by saying this reparation works in here, there is some broken things that happen to the slave victims in here. We can see how suffer they are. Most of them is dying after when they are doing this slave acts in here. Most of them is missing, and we don't know where they are actually in here. But they still have descendants in here that they're responsible of their government. We believe that every people in a country is the responsible of the government. So we see that it is act of responsibility of the government on how they take care of their people. It's not something that we want to blame the government, but it's on how we have the government to have responsibility to the people, especially people under poverty because of their what things happen to their elder itself. Especially when we have so much things to enjoy after what they do. We have so many things that we actually become asset for us after what they do in here. So what we see in here is something that justifiable to pay in here itself by our mechanism. Before going to my second
why are you blaming the government? Because the government itself why are you not blaming the Netherlands? Because Netherlands is the one that interferes military to Indonesia. Why not ask the compensation from Netherlands?
When we are saying that we are blaming the Netherlands to pay some money to the victim itself, we first have to see that the victims is Indonesia. What we have and what we enjoy their infrastructure in the end of the day is Indonesia.
Here.
That's why we want to put this in Indonesia, not the Netherlands. If we want to connect between Netherlands and Indonesia, it will make something like the wrong way of the having international relation with the Netherlands. Why we say so? Because we have done with them.
Here.
So they already pay what they are actually doing here. We're done with them. We wouldn't reopen the actual discussion that we have in here. Going to second argument on how we want to change the mindset of the descendants of the victims in here. On how this money can change, we already know that money have so much power in here. When we're giving money to them, to the descendants, and they have something others to do, they have business to do, and they also want to maintain this kind of business. Because being a businessman, it will be so much happier than being a labor, right? So when they want to maintain in here, it will make them want to educate more on how they can maintain this business so this kind of business will be grow. Even though they cannot do in this business, at least by those kind of money that they have, it can help them to educate themselves to be a laborer and actually have knowledge in here. So when what we're seeing in here that it gives the psychology effect for the descendants itself, that actually the government care of them, the government care about how many part of the family struggle for them. So it's not only giving the appreciation for the soldier, the military that actually also enjoy the facility they made, but also the people who actually do something for this country itself. So what by seeing that debate to propose. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the member of the House, we do not understand what the opening government. We're really sorry towards Hanto's families and with them becoming victims of this slavery. The thing is that what Hanto never explained to us in this debate, number one, why the Parliamentary to create our current policy should be objectively handle the past history, which is not going to be fair at all for any circumstances. Second of all, we think that it would justify simply all taxpayers would be agree on our current government policy. The fact that number one, society right now are not coming this sector itself. Number second, society right now are complex that there is a huge number of people who are going to reject it. So we think, ladies and gentlemen, that this policy is not going to be as a proportional policy like they thought itself. Number one, it's very offensive because this opening government are put price tag to value the dead people in the past, which is, ladies and gentlemen, really bad to reopen traumatic again. Because there are some communities are defending that they have right to be forgotten. They don't want to reopen again their case in order to have a brighter future in their life, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, response is first coming to the opening government. First of all, they never been justified why our current government should be responsible towards our past history. The fact that we assume that they're going to say that for example, what happened in Syria, just because that they're actually there as oppressed society, then the current government needs to be responsible towards the ex-president who oppressed the society right now, which is totally different, ladies and gentlemen. We think in criminal justice system, the one who do the mistake is the one who pay the consequences. And never even link that to the idea where our current government, with no having mistake at all towards our current people now, should be responsible for that. Number one, ladies and gentlemen, that's not going to be explained by this opening government. Another idea, what they're talking only because we need to appreciate them. We agree on that. But our policy right now, our value someone is based on their meritocracy. We agree that there are huge number of poverty in Indonesia, but doesn't mean that we need to set standard on parameter in terms of treating something based on category of the people. Where these people coming from, based on the sex slavery should be based on, for example, like indigenous people or something. The fact that right now our current government has been doing the best effort in terms of accommodating the rest of the people right now. Rule of government right now, giving the equal accessibility in terms of anything. We don't classify who is the person coming from, for example. And that's exactly the nature of equality that they never even explain why should be there is a standard there should be certain standard to create a policy itself. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, we we don't want to blame the government, they say. We only want the government responsible for this. The questions would be, again and again, we're saying that why that the current government right now, even they don't have obligation and they don't even intervene towards this kind of situation, why should even we need to force this government to just simply giving the money to them in order they are going to run their business, run their business in order to make them into the welfare condition. Now coming from first extension, more for opening opposition, how to satisfy taxpayer. We're not believing on the idea that our current society right now would be easily and simply agree towards the current government right now. We need to have the concept of society right now, because our current society right now are complex. They're not only coming from the still victim of slavery, because they're actually the one who are contribute towards the government right now. We think that we are assuming that our current government are going to take the money from this taxpayer allocation right, and we think that the idea of transparency, the society should know that where this money should be allocated to. Number two, I will assume that the society reaction, they are going to reject this, they are going to even very haters toward these people, because number one, government are prioritizing something or making some kind of exclusivity to a certain actor, which is, ladies and gentlemen, are not fair enough compared to our current government right now. Second of all, ladies and gentlemen, what we did, the idea of paying is actually offensive, because you put pressure on your ancestor, because you're saying that your ancestor will be happy just because our government will give you the money. For example, if you are right now as category as a poor or as a poor people, for example, we have our community development by the government. We have our current program, for example, like food coupon, for example, for the poor people. Right now, our current government has doing their best effort to mitigate all the problems. But what we regret is that you put the standard of parameter to make this policy run. Second of all, if we apply this policy, it is becoming an obstacle for the government in running their current government policy, for example. Because the current government need to reopen the case, there should be the idea of witnesses recollection. You need to have the critical evidence just go to the court, and you need to tell the government that I'm the victim and this is my witness, and that's going to be hard, and that's going to be very impossible to apply in our current government right now. Before that, sir.
Under your consideration, why it is happening in a situation where Indonesian woman goes to Japan only for asking for the compensation of their sexual harassment of the slavery during the slavery era? It's because that the government doesn't protecting their welfare at the very first place. That's your policy.
The problem would be, ladies and gentlemen, what happened in the past, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to regret that we never even justify on that kind of situation. The problem is that we also try to give their best for them. Number one, that moment are becoming the process of our country into the better country. We need not to ask something just because at the moment we are going to defending our country. For example, like we are being colonized, because there is always the idea of sacrifice for our people to be better country. But doesn't mean after that era, right now we are currently having a good systematic, then we need to reopen again the case, and we need to always spend much time to only think what is actually the best for these victims. Number one, we are explaining that the reasons why there is huge impact coming on this victim, we think it's going to be fair. Number two, right now people are actually not having a problem regarding to this community, right? Number one, if we acknowledge that these people are coming from poverty people, that we acknowledge that government right now are trying to do the best effort to combat even the idea of poverty. Even right now that we have compensation as aid coming from the United Nations in order to spread the idea of welfare state, ladies and gentlemen. We also try to have that advanced country also have responsible by sparing their amount of taxes into the developing country, ladies and gentlemen, to have this country better in their kind of economic issue, for example, ladies and gentlemen. Another idea that the past history should not be a parameter in creating our current policy. Number one, we think the policy should be made based on the consensus by the society right now. Right? If it is not going to satisfy the society, we think that the government should not go with that kind of the idea. Number two, the parameter of appreciation. We think that the parameter of appreciation should not be based on who are they coming from in the past, because right now we need to move on in order to make our country to be better in the future. We should not have a parameter or standard to create our current policy just because we have a problem in the past. That is becoming an obstacle of our current government if you only think about the idea of past history itself, ladies and gentlemen. Number 3, we cannot categorize people in terms of threatening citizens. We need to label them as a citizen, no matter they are. That's exactly what we want to do as equality, not categorize people based on their gender or other history, ladies and gentlemen. I'm totally for this mission.
Ladies and gentlemen, for an example, the case of Indonesia in 1965 is being brought to the recent court in Den Haag, which is mean that, ladies and gentlemen, law should justice should be upholding, ladies and gentlemen. No matter it is done in past or recent or a future, we as a rational actor, we have to prevent whatever happens, and we have to serve the justice for whatever to uphold the idea of the victims itself, ladies and gentlemen. Before I'm going to that, I'm going to explain say what is already happening in the opening debate. See, the opening government believe in the idea that they will give some compensation because of the contribution to the country, because these victims have mental trauma and as a term of psychological effect by those colonization era. We believe in the idea that while the opening opposition believe that it is not first, it is not the government's fault. Second, they believe in the idea that recent event is not have any relation towards past event, and they believe in the idea that money will not fix the situation. While we as the closing government will offer different stance, we believe in the idea that this actual urgency is happening, for example, like in black people and white people case, where the slavery action is happened because of racial prevalence, ladies and gentlemen. This certain race that is not same and they are not thinking as best as them, they make them become slaves, ladies and gentlemen, to do whatever they want, to do whatever these masters want. This we think that this is more urgent than what is happening in colonialism era, like what they've been talking about. See, we believe in the idea of this. We see this from economical side, because we believe in the idea that payment should be paid because of their trading between staff and services, and we considering this as the services that government should pay towards these victims. Why is that so? Because first, we believe in the idea that this government is like owing this money, this payment towards this slavery victims. Why? Because we believe they are failed to protect their basic society's needs. For example, the right to freedom, the right to welfare, and so on, ladies and gentlemen. Their right is being violated in that case, ladies and gentlemen. And as the government is the one who should be responsible, because this basic duty of government to protect their society's right. Later on, sir. So, see, we believe this slave victim have a right of human is being taken. Why? Because they are not giving any freedom and they live under the great pleasure of their master, right, ladies and gentlemen? So we believe that if, for example, this pleasure, if they don't mistake, they are given punishment, that hurt mental and physically, and this slave victim is living the living creature, that is their descendants. We believe in the idea that they are also service provider. While in this nowadays, in this modern era, they have to get payment for their service that they've been given, right? So we believe in the idea that why they should give this payment of reparation, because we believe in the idea that the power of money. See, they are need this money to support their life as an affirmative action of apologize towards the government, because of the government have this good intention to protect their society's needs. And second, we believe in the idea that this money is really help the needs by these poor descendants of slave victims. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe in the idea that descendants is legally deserve the payment for what their previous generation sacrificed and did. Because government owe them this money. Because we believe in the idea that this for example, like hutang, is acceptable to be pindah tangankan even if it is not to the direct victims, right? Because we believe that these descendants victims have blood relation, ladies and gentlemen, towards these victims, the slave victims. Why do you think it is justifiable? Because first, we believe they are already right sacrificing, and service provider is for material payment. First, we helping the life of needs, the life of needs by these descendants, because we believe in the idea that nature of these last victim descendants is first they have mentally trauma, second they have less education, which make them hard to get proper life and proper welfare, and second we believe in the and third it is the government duty. Why? Because we believe in a poor condition. This poor condition is caused them too hard to develop to achieve the welfare, ladies and gentlemen, because they have this mentally trauma, and we believe they are lack of education degree, ladies and gentlemen, which is mean that this money is really essential thing to run their life, ladies and gentlemen. See, they couldn't live, they couldn't eat, they couldn't have, for example, fulfilling their basic needs if they have no money, right, ladies and gentlemen? Because we think that this reparation money is as a payment towards this elder, ladies and gentlemen. And also we believe in the idea that this as affirmative action of apologize by the government. See, Slavery Act is somehow is the mistake of government, because the government is failed to protect their society's protection, freedom, and also like I mentioned before. We believe this victim is the victim itself is come from the society's side. That's why we believe this is justifiable, this is fair for this victim, ladies and gentlemen. Because what? Because they hurt. This hurt is lived unhealed long, ladies and gentlemen. We believe by the government provide this payment of reparation, it will show first the government is trying to responsible and fix the mistake that they have been made before, because we believe in the idea that justice is justice. Second, we believe in the idea that this is as a form of serious apologies from the government, showing that this government is scared towards what already happened, that violating their right, ladies and gentlemen, before. And we believe in the idea that at least societies feel the affirmative action, good intention from the government. What is the effect? First, victim's family, unhealed one, will slowly becomes better at least, because first they are seeing the good intention from the government, and they could run their life to fulfill their life, ladies and gentlemen. And second, we believe in the other relation between government and society become better. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in upholding justice, we all agree that those who committed crime should be the one that being punished. We believe that the government itself has their own limitation. Government of the past, they have their own threshold in handling military intervention, in handling the colonialization. We believe that Indonesian government itself from the past, they have already given resistance toward the Netherlands, which is why, but however, as the nature of the colonial empire, they are the one that coming from the better civilization, coming with the better equipment, coming with the better military, and eventually, Indonesia could not resist anymore for the Netherlands, which is why the colonization happened, which is why they are being forgotten, the government's case, in which that they only blame the government instead of blaming the Netherlands, which is why we still cannot understand what is the basis of that. So we believe that from the very first, so in order to fulfill the justice system, the criminal justice system, we believe the government is not the one being at fault, because government has done their best, government has tried to fulfill their duty. And moreover, if blaming is not, we believe that in the past, during the colonization of Indonesia, Indonesia has not existed yet. The government of Indonesia has not existed. Therefore, we shouldn't blame the government, because it's not their fault. If supposed to what you want to uphold justice, the example coming from about the 1965 Indonesia PKI issue is that you are accusing the murderer, the one who violated human rights, which is why we believe that yes, the fighters, the ones who do the violation of human rights is the one that should be punished, not the government, which is only the middle actor right now. Now, so what makes us where we to tell you why the society right now do not need this anymore. So first of all, is that we believe the status quo right now is good enough in the notion of social contract and how government is the agent of protecting the all layer of society, and also we believe that in society itself there are two types of society. In the first is the descendants of slaves, and the second is the non-descendants of slaves. Now we believe that for the descendants of slaves itself, this reparation is totally reparation as a form of fun is totally harmful, because this is sending a wrong message to society, creating bad stigma on how those those descendants of slaves are inferior, are weak, need so many sympathy, not so many help. They are incapable in doing anything. They are undermining the descendants of slaves themselves as incapable. And they are also promoting inferiority. They are the one that will create discrimination. They are the one that will create favoritism on how they are going just to favor those who were born not coming from the slave family, and eventually this will create an unfair competition among those the non-descendants of slaves and the descendants of slaves, which is eventually worsening the status quo. Now, we believe that for the first our justification is that now status quo right now is having an organic sense for toward betterment. Now, why so? Because right now we are being free. We do not have any more chain to control us. So that moreover mentioned about the existence of the United Nations as the protector of humanity. We believe that right today under the US Declaration Bill of Human Rights human rights already exist. Human right is the universal fundamental right to all human beings. This is the right to live freely, the right to make decisions, the right to determine your own fate. We believe that this is already fair enough and equal. Now, we believe that in the under the idea of violation of human rights, we are going to say that yes, those who violate it should be punished. We believe that punishment is not counts for the only local government, but also the international community. Now, we believe that the human rights should be upheld to the extent of the harm principle as long as we do not harm the other people. Now, we believe that status quo right now, people are able to determine their own fate. Let's take a look. The one who suffer from colonization of slavery, Barack Obama, he's an African American, he was a slave, his family was a slave, but right now he's able to be a president of America, he's able to pursue their happiness and dream their passion. Moreover, second example, Oprah Winfrey, third example, of Indonesian people, we believe that Jokowi is coming from the people that suffer under the slavery of Japan and Netherlands. So therefore, the idea of people who are able to exercise their own rights, the idea of people able to determine their own fate is already there, because the status quo, we have equal opportunity and we have equal competition. And we believe that they are fighting for their discrimination. Those Barack Obama and the other people, they have fight for themselves, they have fight for the acceptance coming from them. So therefore, we believe that this idea of reparation is going to bring harm from them, because this is just going to waste the efforts in fighting discrimination. Yes.
We believe in the idea that this right now, black people and white people is live in the same country, right? Is it fair for black people to live same as white, while they have already have heard that it's not healing?
Now, at least we know, okay, we acknowledge that the bad history happens, but however, right now, at least the United States are now acknowledging, they give the human rights to them, the people as well, they treat them equally. We cannot argue for what happens in the past, because the past is no longer in our risk anymore. So therefore, at least in order to, instead of exploiting the past mistake, we should just prevent the future harm, which is what is our proposal, prevent the future harm. Now, speaking of unfair competition, now I'm going to move into the second actor, which is the non-descendants of slaves. We believe that the current generation of everyone, they are innocent. They have nothing to do with the past action. Suppose that, let's take a look at the example. Let's say that there's two people, A and B. First of all, one of them is a slave and one of them is not coming from the slave family. Now we believe that the current status quo, let's say that they have equal income. Now, by this reparation, we are giving the slave families an advantage, a benefit, an early start for them to start to pursue their happiness. We believe that this violates the idea of unfairness, because eventually A and B, they are supposed to be fighting in a fair way in pursuing their happiness. Now, because of this incentive, you are the A are gaining an easier way to exert their happiness, while on B they are going to be jealous because they do not have the same treatment, because there's a special treatment only for the descendant of people. While we say that in the parent status quo, in the current status quo and the present state, both of them are equal, both of them are innocent. So why do the hell we need special treatment? We believe that reparation harms equality, because the current equality is that, let's say they are recharacterizing the slave family as the poor people and the non-slave people are the rich people. We believe that even to respond to this case, progressive tax is still there. Equality is already there, because the rich will eventually pay the higher tax and eventually the poor will pay the lower tax. So therefore, we believe that the idea of their proposal is going to violate the idea of unequality. Now, moving on to the opening, what makes us different compared to the opening opposition is that they are so concerned only based on the policy creation, while us, we are concerned about the stabilization of the society itself. We do coming from the government itself, we do acknowledge that money is so important, and we will not argue that money is so important anymore. So
Thank you.
So therefore, we believe that in order to uphold injustice itself, slave-free human rights violation is being done by the Netherlands. So therefore, we still do not understand the idea of why are they blaming the government. And we believe if they're speaking of the nature of descendants, they are having trauma, they have less education. We believe that's untrue because we believe that the example of Jokowi and Ahok is that both of them are the ones that suffer from the same family, yet they are able to achieve their milestone, they are able to reach their own milestone. So we clearly propose to you that the half of the possible of this proposal.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is actually a very interesting debate, ladies and gentlemen. But we believe that the closing bank, especially the closing government, are upper hand rather than the opening bench, ladies and gentlemen. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Because we give justification to you why we should pay, ladies and gentlemen, and why the descendants of slaves as the victim are deserve to get the payment, and what for this payment is going to give, ladies and gentlemen. So, ladies and gentlemen, before going to our better proposal, ladies and gentlemen, let me read about some cases coming from the closing opposition, ladies and gentlemen. The closing opposition believes that why it should be the government regard to the racial slavery and this kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen. Look, ladies and gentlemen, no matter who we are, ladies and gentlemen, we are the part of the society, ladies and gentlemen. And when we talking about the slavery itself, ladies and gentlemen, means that it regarding to the human right, ladies and gentlemen. So why this government is justifiable to give this kind of payment will be explained further in our proposal, ladies and gentlemen. And the second is descendants are already able, they believe that the descendants are already able to survive and only create useless effort if the government pays this kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen. We don't think so, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because the number of Jokowi, Obama are not that significant, ladies and gentlemen. We can see on how many descendants of slaves like Indonesia itself, ladies and gentlemen, are still being developing country, like ladies and gentlemen, and also on how many black people that still struggle in poor, like in America, in the Harlem City and this kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen. So the proposal and the assumption coming from the closing of the government are already failed, ladies and gentlemen. While the open opposition believes that the past government is not the present government, so our government is not responsible to pay and this kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen. Even if their assumption proposal exists, ladies and gentlemen, but ladies and gentlemen, they are still government right, ladies and gentlemen. Until whenever, ladies and gentlemen, they are still under the name of the country, like ladies and gentlemen. If their proposal exists, so why there should be a BPOPK case in this 1965 about the human right and this kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen? Means that, ladies and gentlemen, it is a very urgent case, ladies and gentlemen. Same like the slavery case itself, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that this is still justifiable to pay by this present government, ladies and gentlemen. And the second is, they believe that it will promote the government's pressure or such kind of gap among the society, ladies and gentlemen. We don't think so, ladies and gentlemen. Since it is the case of violation right, ladies and gentlemen, it shows that the past government already failed to protect the society right, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that if the government doesn't give any movement, it will endanger the position of the government itself, ladies and gentlemen. Since means that they neglect once again the problem that happen in the society, ladies and gentlemen. And the third is, ladies and gentlemen, they believe that these descendants have choice to not expose more about themselves as the descendants of slaves, ladies and gentlemen. Even if their proposal exists, ladies and gentlemen, use your logic, ladies and gentlemen. Are you sure that you can differentiate which one the black people or black or white, ladies and gentlemen? Why these people act different, ladies and gentlemen? Look, ladies and gentlemen, they are being slaves for many years, right, ladies and gentlemen, and it will create such kind of the identity, right, ladies and gentlemen. Look, ladies and gentlemen, Hanto is descendants of I'm sorry, China, ladies and gentlemen. And yet, until here now, we still know that the Hanto is Chinese descendants, right, ladies and gentlemen. And the same right, this kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen. Look, ladies and gentlemen, goes to our better proposal, ladies and gentlemen. Why actually we justify that these descendants of slaves are still deserve get this kind of payment, ladies and gentlemen? Look, ladies and gentlemen, we know that the government have obligation to protect our society, right, ladies and gentlemen. They have obligation to create better situation toward our society, ladies and gentlemen. But look, at the past, these slaves lost their rights, ladies and gentlemen. They treat even worse than animal, ladies and gentlemen. They even get no payment when they always do everything, ladies and gentlemen. It shows then how the government already failed to do their duty to protect their society, right, ladies and gentlemen. We know that slave is also part of the society, right, ladies and gentlemen. So in this case, ladies and gentlemen, we emphasize that the descendants of slaves deserve are because it is a debt that coming from the government that should be paid, ladies and gentlemen. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we have the debt means that we have the obligation to pay, right, ladies and gentlemen. Look, legally, debt can transfer or have right, ladies and gentlemen, in front of more, ladies and gentlemen. So these descendants are deserve to get that kind of payment, ladies and and gentlemen. And another case is, we justify to you why we should pay, ladies and gentlemen. Nowadays, we know that money has our superpower, ladies and gentlemen. On the top of level, money is even more valuable than anything, ladies and gentlemen. Look, in this term, we talk about on how those slaves, they have no price, their rights even nothing, ladies and gentlemen, those kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen. Look, ladies and gentlemen, so we think that it is justifiable if we pay with money, ladies and gentlemen. Pay are practical to do things right, which is very valuable on the same level like money in realistic way, ladies and gentlemen. Look, human right is really priceless, right, ladies and gentlemen, while the money in realistic way is very valuable, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that it is justified if we give this kind of payment toward this descendants of slaves, ladies and gentlemen. And the second is what makes us different, is, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we see that selfies are not that cheap, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we know that economically, ladies and gentlemen, we have to kind that we must be paid with money, right, ladies and gentlemen. Those are good enterprises, ladies and gentlemen. In this case, example, ladies and gentlemen, you only work as a keeper, ladies and gentlemen. You only work to win customer and serve them, ladies and gentlemen. Even there is no customer, ladies and gentlemen, you still get your payment, right, ladies and gentlemen. You even treat well by your master by providing you payment plus or lunch, ladies and gentlemen. But look, ladies and gentlemen, how those slaves at the past treat, ladies and gentlemen. At cash, those masters even treat their puppies better, like provide good meal, buy clothes, and many more, ladies and gentlemen. While these slaves only work 24 hours whether their slave is or not, ladies and gentlemen. They will serve their master 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen, even they are sick, ladies and gentlemen. Look, ladies and gentlemen, these slaves give their energy survive than 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen. So we think that these descendants of slaves deserve to get payment, ladies and gentlemen. But
ladies and gentlemen, what happened on the perspective of the government house when they are actually debating on how actually they cannot give any reasons they want to apply this motion to them, ladies and gentlemen. The first, they are actually taking a blame on how actually this is the failure of the government itself in the past situation, that they cannot uphold the idea of the slavery itself, that in the end the slavery itself cannot move because of that thing, ladies and gentlemen. First, they forget about how actually if they want to take the case in Indonesia, how actually the first president of Indonesia, Soekarno, becomes the first leader, and the stability the stability of the politics and also economy is starting from that, ladies and gentlemen, from the independence. They actually they didn't have any government instead of they having any leader, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot actually have we have the blame on these kinds of people because of every kind of citizen even has their voice have their voice in that past situation, that they actually were a struggle together to get the independence is the first time, ladies and gentlemen. Secondly, if they're bringing the case of infrastructures, becomes the idea of why the government becomes responsible because of the contribution and so on. We don't think so, because of this kind of infrastructures were not significant at that time, and that is the first. The second is, if the government count the infrastructure are counted as the contribution of the past society, ladies and gentlemen, the contribution of the past society, not the program of the slavery itself, ladies and gentlemen. No thanks. Secondly, they are actually not bringing any enough evidence even on how actually they believe that the current condition of people, especially the poor society, because of the slavery itself, ladies and gentlemen. Let me explain it. They are actually forgetting about the idea of revolution and also the independence, ladies and gentlemen. They forget about how actually the condition of the post-colonial itself, ladies and gentlemen, when the government becomes so stable that the government can build such kind of international relationship and also the internal business inside the country itself, ladies and gentlemen. This kind of we think that this is not the fault of the slavery case because of what actually. First, they are actually bringing the case of the psychological inheritance. We totally agree that this kind of psychological thing is was actually forgotten, since the idea of having such kind of new generation, and also the idea of getting such kind of happiness in the process of the independence until the current situation like now, ladies and gentlemen. And how actually the Indonesia itself has passed the mental revolution itself, has passed the mental revolution on how actually they have gained the betterment inside their psychological aspect, ladies and gentlemen. That's the first. Second, on how actually the independence itself and the idea of having such kind of nothing left by the slavery itself, because of slavery you didn't have anything, ladies and gentlemen. We don't think so. What the slave, the former slave at that time is actually first confidence of having equal recognition and also accessibility. That's the first. The second is the skills of building infrastructure and also the skills of doing agriculture. That is actually the inheritance which was inherited by the slavery itself, and how actually the coincidentally poor people that becomes the poor people like now not actually the case of the slavery because of they lost their competitions the first time. This is actually the idea on how actually the pasca colonialism becomes the starter of how actually this, every people has the same right to move on. Every sister has the same right to get such kind of individual prosperity. They have the same accessibility and they were also given the same access of natural resources, the same access of any kind of education given by the government on the pasca colonial era. We think that this is actually the thing that should be considered as the first time. As why actually this is not the loss of the slavery itself that makes these people become poor. We stick to our extension on how actually the one that that this kind of people actually could not take a blame on the government itself and do not take a blame on their slavery conditions, because of they are actually living in the modern society on how actually the right of the people has been struggled before by the hero. The right of people itself has been received since the independence. They actually do not need any payment even from the in the camouflage of this slavery because of they are actually the people that have been independent enough. The independence was not owned by the government, but the independence was also owned by the individuals. The government actually has provide the access in jobs, the access on the facilities, and on how actually the people actually has been very happy living in the modern era when the discrimination itself is very few, and how actually this kind of open competition actually exists in this idea. We also stick to the idea of the right itself, where actually the society has been having the right since the first time, and how actually if we get this kind of compensation of the reparation, we actually believe on the idea of how actually the social jealousy itself is there, and how actually this actually this is actually the time for the people itself to be independent. And we don't think that this kind of slavery itself, the perspective of the modern era on slavery has changed. They think that slavery was too extreme at that time. But on how actually the government itself remembers the idea of the slavery itself, remembers that all of the slaves as the actor of the colonialism instead of the victims of the colonialism. This slave actually has the same and also has the equal portion with the heroes, the militia, for example, and also the people who struggle at that time. Even if they actually become slaves, it is because of their loss on the idea of power. By giving such kind of paying reparation to the descendants of slaves itself, this means that government actually violates the idea of justice itself. But the justice should be afforded to all of the people inside the country itself. We think that the unfair condition will be created since this kind of things will happen. Thank you.